Hello everyone, this is Patrick and I hope you're doing well today. Today we'll be looking at the Gospel of John, chapter 19, verses 28 through 30. I'll give those of you reading along with me some time to turn there, but just as a heads up, this lesson is a little heavier than usual, and I want you to remember one word throughout all of this: love. Today is Good Friday. For Christians, we know why it's called Good Friday, because it leads to Easter. But that said, I would like you to join me at looking at how good one particular Friday was nearly 2,000 years ago. Although I could spend hours on this topic and barely scratch the surface, I will do what I can over the next several minutes. Starting off, I want us to focus on Jesus and what he went through before our reading. Jesus was betrayed by Judas, delivered to the Jewish religious rulers, and suffered multiple trials and beatings. Next, he is brought before the Romans, the only people with the authority to carry out the death penalty in those days, and they found him innocent, but the crowd sued for his death, so they sent him away. After he is led away, he is then flogged dozens of times, beaten, mocked, and forced to wear a crown of thorns. He then has to carry his cross through a crowded city where they mock him all the way to Golgotha. When he gets there, he is then nailed to a cross and has been up there for several hours. This is where we find Jesus as I begin the passage. John chapter 19, verses 28 through 30. After this, Jesus, knowing all was now finished, said, to fulfill the scripture, "I thirst." A jar full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge full of the sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Now, if the story ended here, it wouldn't be called Good Friday. We wouldn't celebrate it, and Jesus would just be known as a good teacher or an unfortunate martyr, and that would be that. But spoiler alert, that's not the end. Jesus had no reason to be on that cross. In terms of the Jewish law, they didn't follow the procedure and they skewed the verdict. Today it would have been dismissed and thrown out. The Romans also found no guilt in him and should have released him, but Pilate feared men than he feared God and sent him to die. But most importantly, he was innocent in the eyes of God. He had never sinned in his whole life, and by all accounts, he was not supposed to be there. He deserved heavenly praise, but chose mocking and shame instead. He deserved the crown of glory, but chose to suffer with the crown of thorns. He deserved to be in heaven, but came down to die a horrible death. It is not fair that Jesus died. If it were fair, I deserve the cross, the thorns, the nails, the beatings, the torture, and inevitably hell. I'm the guilty man, just like everyone else. But Jesus went for me, for you, for the people that nailed him to the cross, for that bully at school that gives you a hard time, or that mean boss or coworker. Why? Because Jesus loved that much. I would like to share with you all the encouragement of Jesus' sacrifice, that Jesus loved you so much that he would die for you. The God of all creation, who made trillions of stars billions of miles apart to the most subatomic particle, valued you so much that he stepped down from glory to pay for our sin. Whenever you hear that voice that says you're worthless or unloved, I want you to think back to a Friday nearly 2,000 years ago, where God in human form died for you and poured out his love for you. What Jesus meant by saying "it is finished" was that from then, throughout all eternity, our sin could now be forgiven. The penalty of sin was paid, and the road to salvation purchased with Jesus' blood, not by any works that we could possibly do. Good Friday symbolizes the ultimate display of love the world has ever known. Jesus bore our shame and suffering, dying in our place. While this may seem heavy, and it is, just wait until Easter's celebration. Have a wonderful Good Friday, and God bless.